If you want more conventional wisdom on management, this podcast isn't for you. Throw away your so-called accountability. Throw away those 80s cliches. This is the On Purpose Management Podcast.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the On Purpose Growth Podcast. Again, my name is Bryan McDonald, partner here at On Purpose Growth. And today I have Hayden Humphrey. He's a success coach. And I think everybody's going to be really excited to listen in today because Hayden and I have talked a couple of times. We're connected on LinkedIn. I'm watching his journey, and it's an exciting one. So, Hayden, thanks for being on today, man.
Yeah, really excited to be here, Bryan. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool, perfect. Well, why don't you give some of the listeners and viewers a little bit background of yourself and how you got to where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm a success coach. So I work one-on-one with people who feel stuck, who feel unfulfilled in their careers and in their lives more generally, basically in helping them break out of that and actually create an experience that they can be excited about every single day. And it's funny because that was also my story. My story was one of doing all of the right things. So going to college, getting a business degree so that I would get a job after, moved to San Francisco, worked at a startup for a while and then jumped ship and started working at LinkedIn, all the while starting to narrow down and really dial in on what gets me excited and what are the things that I actually want to be doing versus the things that I should be doing. And I had an experience in the beginning of 2017 where I was working for LinkedIn. I had moved here to Chicago, where I currently live right now, and was part of a business development team for LinkedIn. And basically had an experience where I ended up missing my quota, which it sounds really dramatic, but it felt like sort of an end of the world event. Like this was one thing that I was hired to do. Like, how can I not do this one thing? And so I ended up missing my quota, and I'm asking myself a lot of questions around, better planning and better stress management and all that kind of stuff. But I couldn't shake this question of why do I care so much? How is it that this number is actually affecting me, not only in a professional sense, but also personally in my ability to connect with other people? And what I realized was that for a really long time, I derived my sense of self-worth and value as a person from my resume, from my career achievements, from the job that I had. And so to me, that's what I thought success was being impressive and having impressive companies on your resume and, working at this brand name technology company. And so when I had that realization, it started this whole domino effect around who I thought I was, who I actually wanted to be, and what I thought was actually possible for me. And long story short, I ended up leaving LinkedIn. I jumped with some money set aside, but not a really strong idea around what I was going to be doing. I just knew that I wanted to work for myself. I knew I wanted to make my own schedule and have a lot more flexibility and autonomy. And so I took a couple months of sabbatical. Oh, wow. For a little bit, which is kind of crazy, but it was also a great time to decompress and really get clear on what is it I actually want to be doing, and tried out a bunch of different stuff and eventually came across coaching after I hired my own coach and just absolutely fell in love with it. I'd always been really interested in personal development and increasing my own self-awareness, but I'd never had a formal vehicle for doing it for other people, aside from just sharing my own story. And that's really what I see coaching as, is actually going in and supporting other people and rewriting their stories about what they think is possible for themselves in their lives, in their career. And so that's really what I get to do every day. I get to make my own schedule. I get to, work with the people that I want to work with. And I really get to serve. I really get to stand for, the amazing things that people want in their lives. And I get to stand for the greatness that they might be somewhat in touch with, but haven't fully actually owned yet.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's every time I hear that story from you, it's impressive, right? So did you have to go through any adversity to get where you're at? Or, I know for myself kind of that whole, and I'm putting this story around it and you can confirm or not, but about your meaning being your resume, right? And that to me is adversity. But is there anything else glaring that you had to go through?
Yeah. So, interestingly, I've been really fortunate. I've been incredibly, incredibly fortunate in my life. From where I went to college, from, my relationship with my parents to, my social circle, I've had so many advantages. I've been super fortunate in that area. So the adversity piece really, I think, was a lot of internal pressure. And what I realized was that really what was driving all of that was this deep-seated belief I had about myself that I was unworthy of other people's time and affection and love. And so I saw my achieving and being impressive as an avenue to having people like me. And it wasn't until I actually realized that that was the case that I was actually able to say, hey, I don't want to empower this anymore. I actually want to practice choosing a different story. Because a different way of life. This isn't working for me. I can't really connect with people. There were things that were impossible with that belief in mind that I actually wanted to have access to. So a lot of the adversity that I've faced has been internal. A lot of times it's conditioning from, what we believed when we were growing up and how our parents related to each other, how they related to us, our friend group growing up and what I thought my value was. I realized, another thing was I'm a people pleaser, so I would bend over backwards all the time to make other people, make sure other people were okay and make sure that no one was upset and, keep the harmony of the group and all that kind of stuff, which is a great, it's a great asset to have. It's great quality to have. But at the same time, when you do it unconditionally, you lose all your power when you please other people. And so I realized I really didn't have any ownership or control of my own voice or power as a personal and a professional. And so after I kind of realized what the base root of those issues were, it was then actually going out and getting supported. So hiring coaches, I just hired a therapist recently, like creating the support team necessary to allow me to actually overcome those and practice a different story.
That's great. And this is a perfect transition into what we're deciding we're going to talk about today is choice. I mean, it sounds like you just made a choice to not empower one story and you made a choice to transition that to a different story that was more empowering.
Yep, absolutely. And that's really the basis of everything. That's the basis of the work that I do. That's the basis of the work that I do with clients. Because the interesting thing about choice is a lot of people don't understand that they're choosing every day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Every single day, they're choosing something. And most often what I find is it's from a place of victimhood. It's from a place of things are happening to me, or I've given up, and not choosing is also a choice.
It's absolutely. That's a choice. That's a choice.
So once you realize that, and once you actually are in a position where you get to say, I'm going to choose differently this time, that's when things start to change. And that's a huge part of the work that I do, working with people, is actually, understanding what's the story that's gotten you to this point, what's the story that you want to create, and what's actually in the way, what's in the middle, because that's where it happens. That's where the choice happens of you saying, I'm either going to continue to empower the things that I've empowered up till this point and create more of the same, which people don't normally want, or I'm going to try something different. But it's scary, and you need somebody to stand for you and put you at choice and say, here are these two options. Because very rarely in our life do we have somebody who's going to be that straightforward with you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Most people aren't.
Yeah, to be able to speak in those terms. But I think, the great part about it, what I've realized about choice is you can look at it as disempowering and you can look at it as scary, or you can look at it as really empowering and saying, I get to actually design my experience from the ground up, because it's either none of it's possible or it's all possible. And I want to believe that it's all possible and that I can have a life that's a direct reflection of who I am as a person.
And that's one thing that I've noticed about choice is it's scary, right? The choice of not changing is usually done from this story over here. I'm comfortable with, right? I'm comfortable with that, right? Even though this doesn't work for me,
I know it.
For whatever reason, this is I know it, right? This is what I know, and that space in the middle of making a different choice is an unknown, and it's scary because it's unknown, but yet it actually leads people to the story and the people or the being or the success that they want.
Yeah. And it's so great because then it's, I really look at all change in life is a accumulation of small acts of courage, because that's really what it is. Like when you're making a decision that you've never made before to go out and try something, it's an act of courage. The fear is there, but you're choosing to act in spite of the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so a big part of that is having somebody who can hold space for you and reassure you that it's going to be fine regardless of how it works out. And also being really connected to the what for in the vision. Because if you're trying to make a choice that's going to dramatically alter the path of your life and you don't have a really strong why, you don't have a really strong, like, what's on the other side of this choice? What am I going to get as a benefit? The chances of you actually making that choice are pretty slim because you're just going to go right back to, well, this is comfortable and I know this and what have you. And that's just who we are as humans. Like biologically, we like stability. We like more of the same.
It's a survival tactic. It's a survival tactic. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so I see choice as access to transformation is almost, in a lot of senses, your own biology by choosing something else in the face of fear, in the face of your body telling you don't do this because you might die or whatever it is. It's you actually choosing something else and choosing to be more than that so that you have access to the life that you've been looking for.
And this is interesting. A mentor of mine taught me a long time ago that it's what can your body produce? Because it's biological. We are biological, right? Results are biological, right? So the new future, I've studied this for a while, is the new future that I want goes through my body producing that. It has to be, a biological change. And hence that is why it's very uncomfortable to choose the new things, right? Because you have to actually go through it, right? Yeah. And what I see a lot of people doing is just choosing to be the same and not getting what they want. And then wondering, why do I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel?
Totally. Yeah. It's funny being somewhat on the other side of that and being able to look back and say, oh, because I've made a lot of choices that have brought me to a place where I have a much better understanding of how life works and how these things work. And, it's interesting because one way to look at it is looking at it like, why wouldn't you want this? Why wouldn't you want to do this? It would make sense to make this choice and whatever. And I think the interesting piece is actually in that situation is actually to practice compassion and practice like that understanding of this person is up against fear. And a lot of times it does feel like I'm going to die if I do this.
Yeah, right.
So I can't blame anybody for not making the choice because I totally understand it. And really all that I can do is show that person compassion and understanding and why they are what they are and show the way to the door. And show there's a different opportunity if you want to take it. And I'm going to be here for as long as, as long as it takes. I'm going to stand for you to actually make a different choice, but you have to be the one that actually walks through the door.
Yeah. I mean, I see that with clients all the time too, is they want to break through. They ask, how do you do this? You explain how to do it. And then it's hitting the wall, running into a wall is kind of part of it, right? It's, you either hit the wall because you're not moving or you hit the wall because you're running into it, but it's still ultimately blocking you. And it is holding that space with people, allowing them to be wherever they are at because they have to experience the change themselves. It's not external. It's not out here. It's all in here. And it's amazing when you see it happen.
Totally. Yeah. And, it's the cool thing in the type of work that you do and the type of work that I do is, it's one thing to tell somebody how to overcome an obstacle, and it's another to hold space for them while they figure it out. And those are two very different outcomes because, they could potentially get over the obstacle, but in one, they're not building the muscle to do it themselves, which down the line, that's what everybody really wants is, better self-awareness muscles, better, resiliency muscles, creative muscles, what have you. And most of the time, even if you tell somebody how to do it, no one likes being told what to do. No one likes being told what to do. And there's also no ownership in that. Right? Like if I give somebody an answer, they have no ownership over it. They didn't do anything in actually sourcing the solution to that problem. So the chances of them doing it and the chances of them really integrating the lesson and, whatever the answer was are slim to none.
Yeah, and something you said earlier too about their why and the story. What I actually noticed to a lot, and I don't know if you know this, is it's not a skill. Figuring out what your why is not a skill that the world teaches anybody. And there's a lot of people saying, well, here's my why, and they choose somebody else's story. Mm-hmm. Right. And not that there's not, how should I say, people are doing their best. It's not that they're wrong. It's just the skill hasn't been developed to what why do I choose, right? Because if it's not strong enough, it's going to take you only so far, right? Yeah. And the actual why, really deep down inside of being vulnerable and coming up with that is the one that gets you to the moon and back, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, the ability to dream, the ability to come up with a vision. There's so many layers and facets to that. And I feel like based on what you just said, underlying all of that is this intimacy with self, connection with self, and actually getting really clear on not only what am I actually yearning for, what do I actually want, but mm-hmm. also the fact that I'm allowed to have it. Because yes. with a lot of people, it's this concept of I'm not worthy of this. I don't actually deserve this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not capable enough, or whatever it is. And if that is out of whack, if you don't think that you deserve any of it, it doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't matter what the dream is. It's not going to be that North Star. It's not necessarily going to be that guiding light in actually pulling you forward to make the decisions that are going to make the difference.
Absolutely. And it's funny, those things of that unworthiness, that these things aren't worth it. That again in itself is a choice,
yeah.
Right? Right? It's choosing that. You're choosing that over feeling worthy, right? You're choosing feeling unworthy, and that is rampant in our society.
Totally, yeah, and it's yeah. I love it. You're so funny because it's so right on, and that's the cool part about this whole concept is that our entire lives are based on interpretations. I don't know if you've read, have you read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer?
No, I've heard of it though.
Okay, yeah. Amazing book, wonderful book. But he does this really beautiful imagery in the book where he talks about our identities, how our identities are constructed, and they're constructed based on interpretations of past events. So you think about, you remember a party one way, somebody else remembers a party a completely different way. Mm-hmm. Neither of you are wrong. They're just different perspectives and different interpretations on something that happened. And the cool part about it is once we become clear of what those are, we can actually go in and say, I'm actually going to choose something else. I'm going to empower something else. I'm going to choose a different story. I'm going to rewrite this story. And half of it is practice. That's the biggest part about it. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I understand I have this belief. I feel unworthy. I feel unlovable, whatever it is. And it's another to be so consistently and consciously aware of that thing that when you're in a situation where you get to choose either empowering that belief or another belief, you get to practice little bit by little bit by little bit. And then over time, as you build the muscle, then it becomes your norm.
And something I've been noticing lately, especially with me, is that choosing to be okay of where I am at personally and professionally, right? Choosing that space actually gives me the ability to see those moments and times where I can make that choice to grow even farther, right? It's like this just the theme just lines up over and over and over again. Me choosing to be sincere to myself and say, this is just where I'm at. Yes, I want to go here, but I need to go through this to get there. And the more I accept that, the more I grow, because I see that in other people is like, they just want the end. A buddy of mine and a client had said to me, there was a 26-week program I was putting together for him and some of the salespeople. And he said to me, I just want those 26 weeks now. You're never going to get it, right? You can't. Don't live at the end of the 26. Live at this moment now. Choose this moment now, because that's where you can see what choices you have to make to actually get to the end of that 26 weeks.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. From a learning perspective, absolutely. Yeah. And it's about being patient and understanding that there are building blocks that need to go into you actually having what you want. And the other side of that too is also just this understanding that with so many of us, we see the end goal as that's it. That's what life's about, is achieving the thing, having the job, having the money, whatever it is. We see that as, oh, that's the thing that will finally help us, fill this piece of us that we feel like we're missing, or it'll make us worthy, or it'll make us lovable, or, whatever it is. And that in so many senses is one of the biggest choices, is actually saying, no, I'm actually going to choose to empower this moment right now.
Yes.
But, I also don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, oh, I spent my entire life chasing things, and then I never actually had anything. But you do. You have access to it. You have the option to pick it, but it's right now. And when you see it as perfect, just like you were saying, I love this because it's a breakthrough that I've had recently around choosing to see everything as perfect. Exactly how it is. I think one of the biggest advantages of that is it actually frees up a lot of mental space and energy that you've been spending on worrying about, am I doing enough? Is this right? Am I going to be able to do this? How is the future going to work out? It's almost like you only have, so much mental capacity and energy during the day, and half of it is being spent on worrying about things that don't matter or haven't happened yet. That only gives you 50% to actually put into the actions that are going to pull you forward and take you forward.
And it's exhausting. Like the worrying part is exhausting, right? It takes up so much more energy than the actual thinking of what to do right and accepting, and I'm getting exhausted thinking about it, right?
Yeah, that's the funny thing too about exhaustion and anxiety. I've realized is like, you don't know how much you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
How did I function with that much anxiety on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's in this as we're saying, this choice thing is so intertwined. Is if when people just focus on that, like, what choices am I making and how are they impacting me, and just creating that awareness is so empowering, right? You don't even have to get it right? Whatever right is, right? It's just understanding that that's happening all the time, moment by moment.
That's huge. Well, because then you have complete and total control over how your life actually turns out. Like I was saying earlier, like, it can be really scary or it can be really empowering. But so much of it is just practice. It's just practicing, choosing over and over and over and over and over and over again. I used to look at that as sort of like a bane, sort of annoying, like, oh, I just want it now. I just want to do the thing now. But the great part about it is when you understand that everything can come about as practice, it takes all the pressure off. Because then it's not like, oh, I just have to be that way right now, or I just have to be that good. Or in coaching, like, I have to be that great, like the folks that I'm surrounded with are master certified coaches, the people who've been doing it for decades, there's a quote about being a rookie. The hardest thing about being a rookie is that your critique is stronger than your craft.
It's so true. So true.
Yeah. You look around and you see all these people and what the bar is, what you'd like to get to. And it can be sort of overwhelming to be like, oh crap, like, I'm not there yet. But if you just look at it as, well, if I practice enough, if I choose to practice every day, that's what's going to take me to, the place that I actually want to be.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to steal that from you. That's awesome, because the critique is, greater than the skill. And I'm going to go back to something I said before. What I've learned is being sincere with myself, no matter what, is the biggest key. Because, and when I say sincere, meaning what I'm really saying is being okay with where I'm at is the one thing that actually allows me to get that incrementally better every single day, and moment by moment, even, right? Because I get to see the fork in the road, and I get to see, like, hey, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way, even though it's a little choice. Yeah. Even if it's the choice of saying, hey, I screwed that up, but this is where I'm at, and this is how I move forward, rather than, I screwed up, I should have done this, I'm suck, I'm awful, I'm never going to make any money, blah, 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 right? Because it's a spiral, right? It's a spiral.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about it is, I almost feel like, in a lot of ways, that's sort of like, when you get to the point where you have all the contextual knowledge and basis of understanding of here's what choice is about, that's the cool part, is then you get to go a little bit more into the minutia of like,
Yeah.
how's it showing up on a day-to-day basis? And, where are you not telling yourself the truth? Where are you not being honest with yourself? Where are you not actually taking a look at the hard things or the scary things? I had an experience last year, probably like October, November timeframe. I was having a conversation with my coach, and I don't remember the exact context of the conversation, but we basically came to this realization that I was playing entrepreneur instead of being entrepreneur.
No.
And playing piece, right? And it's like kind of weird to talk about, because it's like, oh wow, I can't believe I got, this whole, I spent so long doing this, and it's a little bit embarrassing or whatever it is. But everybody has their stuff. And so when I looked at that, I wasn't really taking a hard look at how are the actions that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis actually impacting, my bottom line and the growth of my business. And where am I not going out and getting the training that I need or the support that I need because of, some fear or, what have you. So it's the choosing to actually take a really hard look at what are the choices that I'm making on a day-to-day basis. What's serving me? What's not serving me? Which can be really scary. And how do I go out and get the support that I need or choose differently?
Yeah. And I see that a lot in society, that people are playing some role, but not actually acting on it. Right. It's a very, very dynamic thing and inside that, you're choosing not to play the game the right way. You're choosing to encompass something that you don't fully believe that you are yet. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. It's choosing to stay safe. It's choosing, it's choosing not to step out, which I totally understand, because I think in so many ways, again, like, we're conditioned to do that. That's what we're conditioned to do, is to hide ourselves, hide our vulnerability, hide our authenticity, hide our weirdness, whatever it is. And exactly to your point, this is a big part of what I do as a coach, especially as an ontological coach, is actually getting an understanding of who are you being versus what are you doing. Because most people are doing their roles. Most people are doing motherhood, doing, parenting, doing entrepreneur, doing, whatever it is, versus being is a completely different way to actually be about it. Where are you making the decisions from? And this is a whole nother ballgame in terms of how things are actually going to play out and your ability to create the experience that you actually want for yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's scary at first because it's different and it's abnormal and outside of what we're used to. But at the same time, it's so freeing, because I see this performance piece, this doing piece, this playing of roles piece, almost as like a theatrical play. And on a day-to-day basis, like, imagine doing a play for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It would be exhausting. Like, being up in front of people and performing and thinking, what do they want me to do? And how should I be? And how should I, do all this kind of stuff? And that's basically what everyone's doing. That's what we're doing, is we're performing. We're putting on a theater play for every single person in our lives. And it's exhausting. It takes so much energy, versus us actually just showing up and being us. And just being with the vulnerability, being with the weirdness, being with, our authentic selves. But it's scary, and it takes time, and it takes choice, and it takes work to actually create that. But for me, in so many ways, like, that's the end goal. When you don't have to perform and you just get to be.
So do you think it's in those moments that you're describing that people are choosing not to be present?
Yes, unconsciously. I think it's an unconscious choice. But yeah, it's a lack of presence. It's also a lack of vulnerability in a lot of ways, because that's what it requires to show parts of ourselves. That's what it requires to be a fully expressed person and say the thing that we just want to say, and not worry about, what are they going to think of it, or, how are people going to take that, or whatever. A big part of it also comes down to presence. The more present that you are, the less worried you are about, however your history and story has played up until now. And, the less worried you are about how things are actually going to go. And you just get to be there with this person. But it requires a level of intimacy in a lot of ways that a lot of people are not necessarily equipped to handle. So I definitely agreed on the choice point.
Yeah. And I see it a lot too in salespeople that they are sales leaders, is that they're not present. They're playing this role, they're not getting the results that they want, that if they just stepped into it with other people, right? Be in the moment, be there with your prospect, be there with your client, be there with your sales team, you'll start driving the results because you start driving and choosing authenticity.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what people want.
Right.
What everybody wants. That's like, regardless of if you're being sold or if you're in a relationship or if you're a child or a parent, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants authenticity. It's almost like, I have this analogy where it's like most of us are playing a game of hide and seek. Like we've literally just been playing hide and seek forever, and it starts to get cramped. Like it starts like we're like holed up in some cupboard, like legs up against us, and it just starts to get cramped, and it starts to get annoying, and it starts to get whatever. When really all we want is to just step out and be like, hey, like this is us, this is me, this is how I want to show up. And when you do that, it allows other people to do the exact same thing.
Yes, absolutely. It feeds itself in society or whatever. And that's the dynamic thing that when I see clients and the light bulbs go off, they see that. It's like, hey, like I thought, these relationships or these sales situations, they're supposed to go like this. And I'm playing my role in this. And now when I step out of that and I'm just authentic, people start telling me a bunch of things that they never told me before. And now we can actually make progress faster. It's amazing.
I love that. And it's cool also being in a position where so much of this work is inspiring other people to also want to do the work. And that's exactly what it sounds like. You flip the switch for one person, and that's something that you can't take back. It's like,
right.
You walk outside and your eyes adjust to the brightness, and like, you can't go back inside. You're not going to be able to see anything.
Yep.
And so that's the cool part about it is it's this cumulative effect. And now they get to inspire their own sales force, people who are going to go out and be future sales leaders to do the same type of thing because it's effective and because it works and because it's not performing and because it's not doing. And so that's a huge thing for me as I think about the type of work that I am looking to do long term, and the type of work that I like to do with my clients is actually inspiring them to do more of that so that they can go out and be that person for the people in their lives. And it's almost like this ripple effect of authenticity and courage and being and choosing the thing that's actually going to serve you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you being on. I think this is really inspiring for those that are going to watch it and listen to it. I appreciate you being a good friend and a contact. So I'll make sure that all your information is shared here. So if people want to get in contact with you, they will, and we'll go from there. So thanks for being on, man.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on HaydenHumphrey.com. But Bryan, absolute pleasure. I really always enjoy our conversation. So thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the On Purpose Growth Podcast. Let us know what you thought in the comment section. For more from On Purpose Growth, go to onpurposegrowth.com. Subscribe here at BLTV for all of our content, including the daily Learn About Law podcast, Seize Your Business, Making Real Estate Fun, and Logical Logistics podcast, brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Thanks for listening.